Welcome to the first ever Relational Ground podcast. My name is Dominic Shattuck. I'm a researcher at Johns Hopkins University and Men's Health Fellow at the American Institute for Boys and Men. Recently, I started this podcast to hear some stories about the people, the systems, and the way in which we interact with one another and our kind of relational well-being. My first guest on this show is Yiannos Contrafouris, who was gracious enough to agree to be on the show today and kind of let me test out some of these questions and how the conversation is going to go. And he'll tell us a little bit about himself. And the format will be three kind of general questions around important people in our lives, important like systems or programs or groups in our lives, and then kind of how we connect with the outside world. And through that, we'll move through the conversation about Yiannos and his life and the people in his life, as well as get to know him much, much better. And we can hear and learn some things from his experiences that might apply to our own lives and the groups we work with. So at this point, Yiannos, would you mind kind of filling us in? Who are you? How do you like to describe yourself and the work you do, or the kind of the place you are at in life right now?
First of all, Dominic, thank you very much for the invitation. It is a pleasure to inaugurate this series of podcasts. I'm Yiannos Contrafouris. I am a communications professional with about 25 years experience. I have a PhD in systems thinking from the University of London, which we can come back to later, but it has touched many aspects of my life and my relationship. I work between Brussels and Athens and Luxembourg. I do a lot of work for institutional communications in different settings. And a lot of things that are interesting to me as I grow older are related to male health, male physical and mental well being. And hopefully, we will touch upon those as we carry on our discussion.
Yeah, I think that kind of brought us together, like on our online platforms and things like this, is that, special interest in men's health, as, kind of we both have experienced firsthand, as well as watching other people around us experience it. So yeah, this is great. And yeah, interesting too, the systems thinking research and degree that you have is very near and dear to my heart. I'm a community psychologist in background, which had a lot of system science to it too. So hopefully we will get to some of that and understanding how that relates to how you look at organizations and things like this. So, we jump into this talking about like people first, right? So identifying, what kind of relationships, past or present, what types of relationships in your life have shaped who you are today and how did you get here? Like, who are the critical people when you think about maybe young Yiannos or different stages of your life that have really kind of shaped you and brought you to where you are?
I had a few thoughts about this. I mean, I would like to say that I'm an advocate of assigning importance to every single person that's ever touched you in some way. So I think we're all sort of puzzles of different influences. So obviously some are bigger than others, and I have to look at the real active relationships in my life. Like now, my wife and my two sons. They I know it's a bit of a cliche, but really, when you live with someone like a partner and they shape your everyday, you simply cannot say that it's not an important part of my life. It's I think my wife in many ways has taught me how to be loved apart from learning how to love, learning how to be loved and what being loved means, which for me was a fundamental shift from all other relationships I've had in the past, romantic relationships. And my sons taught me how to love in a way, kind of that unconditional set of feelings that you give to someone, and you sort of wake up one day and you sort of have this gauge. Yeah, I could die for you. Yeah, sure, I could die for you. It's no problem. Literally, yeah, fine.
Uh-huh.
And for me, that was a massive realization when it first hits you. It's like, what do you mean? that's the kind of thing that I had never felt before. So obviously that is a shaping influence. Yeah, I could die for
Mm-hmm.
you, no
Mm-hmm.
problem. I would rather
Mm-hmm.
not, but if I have to,
Yeah.
sure. And then, as you go back, there really is a great number of people who have shaped me over the years. My mom, my dad, yes, obviously my sister, my family, but friends, big and small, um, partners in at work, big and small, colleagues. Everybody brought something, big or small again, and they sort of like left it there for me to process over the years, and resulting in this. So whatever this
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
is a result of many different influences. But yeah, shaping wise, you cannot look at me without having the influence of my family in there in a
Yeah.
very strong
Yeah.
way.
How do you say your wife kind of taught you how to be loved a little bit more, and in a different way probably. But how did your parents express love when you were young? How,
my
or looking
parents
back on it, how did you kind of process their love? Yeah.
my parents, their love was abundant. That's the way. I mean, even in therapy, it was all encompassing. It was there. Sometimes, I mean, I do have a bone to pick in terms of how tangible it was. It's like you felt it, but you couldn't always point at it.
Yeah.
It's this. Um, uh, and people tell me this, whenever I talk about mom and dad, I smile, and there's a lot of background affection. I remember my dad holding my dad's finger, for example. It's a massive memory for me, and people don't know. I still don't know why. It happens a lot. When you're small, your fingers are small. Your dad's fingers are massive. You think they're
Yeah.
massive,
Yeah.
and you sort of hold on to it. I still remember that. I remember my mom hugging me and smiling at me. It was like a all-encompassing pillow, let's say, around you,
Yeah.
like a cushion against the world. As you grow up and you go into your teenage years and you sort of start, I was never really the rebellious type, but I moved away from home at 17. So I sort of had that phase away from them. Um, because I was quite young, I think from 17 onwards, I also idealized them a little bit. So they became these almost mythic figures that were there, but not really there because I was
Yeah.
gone. And
Yeah.
after I was gone, obviously, yes, I came back for holidays, but I was really gone. I never moved back into the family home.
Really, never
Yeah, yeah,
never
I
went
came back
back
for
to live with your
summers.
parents again.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. I came back for the summers. Yeah, obviously I stayed, but my mind was elsewhere. I started my university.
Okay.
I moved to the UK, and then that was it.
Okay.
So yeah, I think they really put the foundations of what it means to be a young man, how to feel, how to treat, how to be treated.
Hmm.
But again, I think a lot of the gaps I filled in for myself. And not because I was great or anything, but because I had to find answers as you grow up and you find your own answers. And I still judge them by the criteria of the 1970s and 80s. Huh? That's I was
Yeah.
born in the 70s, grew up in the
Right.
80s. The parenting was different then. It's
Hmm.
not the same style.
Yeah. So it sounds like very kind of secure, like you confident in your relationship with them. Were they good communicators with you? Do you feel like they were good communicators, or was it you had to kind of decipher from their actions?
I think, as I said, deciphering from their actions, I think was where I would put it. I don't think they were great communicators. As I said, you felt it, but you couldn't
Hmm.
always touch it. You couldn't always see it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't think we ever had those big discussions about how do you feel about this. I mean, I caught
Sure.
myself talking to my younger son the other day. He had a basketball match. He wasn't that happy with his coach, and his coach wasn't happy with him. And I remember sitting down with him. I said, it's okay to feel crap right now. It's okay to feel bad, and it will go away, but feel it. Don't just
Hmm.
kind of like, put it aside and no, it's there. You have a right to feel bad. So feel it, talk to
Hmm.
me. But we never really had that much of that. when I was growing up. I'm not sure if I should expect it or it should have been more of it, but yeah, it is what
I
it
think,
is
like
now.
you said, at the time, that wasn't a parental, you know, wasn't really in the skill set for many parents.
Many, exactly, exactly. I think they didn't. I think a lot of them didn't
Yeah,
know. I'm not making excuses. I'm sure there were parents that were doing it a lot, but we never really did have. How do you feel? How does
yeah.
this make you feel? And
Hmm.
as a family, we used to move around. My dad, we used to we left the country, then we came back. So there was a lot of moving as well. So there were a lot of tensions in that aspect, and there was some nurturing at that, but we never kind of like addressed every single issue that emanates from that. But yeah,
Yeah. So then you mentioned also your wife, and how old were you when you got married?
I was 31.
So,
It,
so when you think
it's a
about,
blur now.
yeah,
It's all it
I'm not going to hold you to your anniversary or any of that
was
stuff. No way.
2007. It was
Yeah.
2007.
Okay. So you, like, 14 years of living out on your own, dating and things like this, and kind of going to school and taking your first jobs and getting your first apartments and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah.
Um, and then the two of you came to. How did you all meet?
I met my wife really the old-fashioned way. Back then, you didn't have many choices anyway. It was through mutual friends.
Yeah.
We sort of used to hang out in this big group. But it was like the down thing. You used to have those big groups of 10 people, and there was like a core and the periphery. And I was part of the periphery because one of my best friends, who was their best friend, brought me to the group one day, and that was pretty much it. A few months later, we started
Yeah.
dating.
So what was it about her when you first met her? What was it that kind of pulled you in?
Oh, she was probably going to listen to this at some point, but I mean, it's a known story. I
Is it?
whenever our
Okay.
sons ask me the same thing, there were two things. There were two things. I still remember the day because I had known her for a few months, right? But I do remember the day when it all became like a switch. Um, it was just her mind and the way I could look into her eyes and something kind of like like there's a bridge, like eye to eye bridge. And it's
Uh
like
huh.
something is happening there, something. And like she has the deepest blue eyes. So when I thought, I was like, what's happening right now? And then I realized what was happening a few months down the road. But I appreciate I appreciate not just sarcasm but wit in people very very much. It's one
Hmm.
of my forms of communication. So she really kind of came back. She had a great comeback, and she wouldn't just let go like a joke. I'm like, oh, come on, like
Uh
let's
huh.
do this, let's do this. And yeah, and the rest is history.
And you mentioned, like, how, obviously you fell for her and there are these strong feelings and things, but when it comes to, like, feeling loved, you mentioned that she, like, kind of taught you how to allow yourself to be loved in a romantic way. And how do you see that as different from previous experience, or kind of how does it also, how the previous experiences, but also, like, how you kind of approach your relationship now and how it's rolled into being a husband and a partner to.
Well, obviously now this is my longest relationship, but as time was going by before we even got married, um, I was kind of sensing different patterns being developed in how our love or our relationship was evolving, and the role that I was playing in that relationship, and the things that she needed or wanted from me, and then things that I needed or wanted from her. I think she was the kind of relationship. I think that's what I'm saying. Talking how to be loved, because in many ways, and this sounds a bit odd, maybe I'm not phrasing it right, but she didn't need me, but she wanted me. And I kept coming back to that. And until that time, I had a sort of I need you kind of role in a relationship. Like the role I was playing, and I sort of enjoyed it as well, is that I was an all encompassing logistic support and kind of travel agent and kind of, but it was fine. It wasn't, I didn't feel that, this was something outside of my realm. I was glad to
Yeah.
do it, but I think my wife, you know, wanted me. She
Yeah.
didn't need me.
The value shifts, huh?
Exactly, and the
Like,
values.
yeah.
And suddenly, I became this man that this woman wanted and loved, and
Hmm.
she sort of like, I don't want all that. I want to love you. And was like, okay, well, fine. Here I am. Love me. And it was a very interesting shift for me. It was one of, again. I wasn't like 40, but I was 26 when we started like going out. So I wasn't that experienced in terms of long term relationships,
Hmm.
like a year and a half, 2 years. I consider long term anything over a year. So for
Yeah,
me,
sure.
anything over a year, when you're 18, 19, it becomes quite serious. So this was the first time that kind of it was sort of like an equal setting.
Yeah.
I want you for who you are, and I love you for who you are,
Hmm.
and that is enough. That was
Hmm.
enough. I think that's a big thing, that I'm enough.
Yeah. How can I ask, like, how does that shift your, now you have children and that kind of thing, but before the children arrived, like, how did that shift the way you kind of saw the world and like how you engaged other people when you started to have this relationship with your wife?
Um,
Or maybe
I
it didn't.
think it made me more. I don't want to say confident, but it was kind of like a reassurance,
Mm.
a kind of your place in the world, the kind of the realization that you're enough. That
Yes.
this is not only perfect for you, flawed as it is, but also for someone else. And kind of like you don't need to change. You need to be a better version of yourself for them. Like
Yeah.
you can improve constantly because I believe in evolution and don't just stay static. But you're enough. And by that time, I had also embarked on my career, and it definitely had a positive effect because also gave me wings to actually, try more things, and we could both embark on different adventures and
Yeah.
come back home or do them together.
Can you tell me more about that? Like what do you mean by embark on different adventures, or give, like, put some meat on that bone, and so that other people can understand like
Well, for
how
me,
feeling secure in that way really helps you.
I think that, yeah, it's that word. I don't like it particularly, but it keeps coming back. So
Yeah.
that security, when you sort of, I don't want to, I don't want to overplay the word security because a lot of people confuse it with complacency, and it's not the same thing. When you're secure in your relationship and in what you receive and what you give as love, then you're sort of putting the foundations on other aspects of your life as well. So the energy that I put into that relationship was coming back at me threefold, tenfold, and I could take that and apply it elsewhere. So I write a lot, so I do translations a lot, I communicate a lot. So I saw at one point in the beginning of a relationship, I had 4 jobs. I look back and I'm like, what the hell? I had 4 jobs. I was writing at night. We were going out. I was translating, and it wasn't the young man's energy. It was just a general energy that I felt through this, bubble we were living in,
Hmm.
and kind of making this work. And it's sort of like it's a fire.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it's security plus that, and it's a loop. It's a feedback loop. Any energy, as I said, you put in, it comes back at you.
Yeah. Here comes the system science on this now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Although I'm not gonna go into it, I've promised myself I wouldn't start theorizing. But relationships are open systems. Some
Open
people
systems.
view them as closed systems because a man and a woman. That is just completely wrong because they're
Tell me
open
more.
systems.
Yeah, let's
Well,
go there.
well, I did my PhD. I'm a biochemist by degree. My first
Okay.
degree is in biochemistry and biotechnology, but I wanted to move into the management side of things. So my PhD was studying the systems thinking in the management setting. And corporations are essentially open systems. Huh? The worst kind of system you have in the world are closed systems. Basically, all the boundaries, all the borders are shut down. So all the energy is kept inside and either rots or it just repeats itself again and again and again. Like an
Was there
example,
the concept of like cellular automata? Did you ever study that?
yes, but again, you'll be very pressed to find closed systems in nature. The actual universe itself is a closed system, but it's so vast we don't care. It's a paradigm. Yeah, of course it's a closed system because there's nothing else outside it, but we don't care. It's just massive. Relationships are a bit like corporations in terms of you have your partners, something inside, but there's constantly influences and energy coming at it from unexpected ways or from ways that you know, right? And how these shape the parameters of the system means that you're no longer a black box, you're a gray box or a white box. What comes out of it, you need to monitor because it's not a result of the system itself, it's a result of the system itself plus the external factors coming into it.
Yeah. And those external factors being like jobs and finances and
And
people
parents and
and
ailing
time
parents.
and parents and
Yeah,
having to care for older people or younger people as they come
everything.
into your life and
Everything. And
shifting.
you
Yeah.
bring that finally into your bed. You bring it into the
Mhm.
sofa and you
Yeah.
bring it into the relationship. But I think
Yeah.
a mistake we often make is, especially when we have kids, and this is one of the tangents you can go on, is that partners tend to see their relationship as intangible. And I think it's a very tangible part of being. So we have three kids, I keep saying. We have two sons and a relationship, and the relationship always takes precedent. It has to, because if that doesn't exist, everything collapses. There's nothing
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So it's me, it's her, what we created, and the two boys. So it's
Yeah.
three kids, different needs, very different needs, but
Mhm.
it's there.
Mhm.
So once you ignore your first kid, which is the relationship, everything else follows. Everything else
Mm.
crumbles.
And so
Um,
tell me, like, how do you kind of foster, like, how do you continue to foster the relationship as a couple in terms of, managing the children, managing the outside, beings and dynamics? What do you do to kind of foster that in big and small ways, Just a
well,
couple of examples.
it's probably some of it's probably a bit corny, and I'm not going to go into great details. But
This,
I mean,
yeah,
you have to you no no, but I mean, you have to
yeah,
invest, right?
yeah,
And both financially and mentally, you
yeah,
have to invest. It's a kid. It's a kid. Think
yeah.
about it as a kid, and especially as it grows with you. You can't. I and I see it. I'm not a marriage counselor or anything. I don't have any more knowledge than any other layman out there. But the minute you stop investing, the minute you take it for granted, that's the time. That's when troubles begin. So
Yeah.
it could be a weekend away, it could be a night away, it could literally. But at the end of the day, it's also something more mundane than that. And I keep coming back to it when people ask me, you need to actually like spending time with them, and that shouldn't
Hmm.
change.
Yeah.
One of the things my friends I see with some of my friends, like they're looking for escape, and then it always baffles me, like, what are we escaping from? I don't want to escape.
Right.
This is my
Right.
escape right there.
Yeah.
Netflix and chill. I don't know if it's. I don't want to escape because then I have to consider, what am I escaping from, like a
Yeah.
prisoner.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that constant investment and kind of opening up when things are troubling you,
Hmm. Hmm.
you
You know,
cannot stress it enough.
yeah, you say like it's the big things and the small things, and I notice in my own relationship too. It can be as simple as sitting on the porch reading the newspaper, and you're kind of hanging together, and in between articles or whatever you say X, Y, and you catch up on something, or hey, whatever happened to this conversation, or did you ever get connected with that person, or our daughter did something, and did you hear about this? And it really, if you're not checking in on the day to day, I do kind of find myself, my wife is very, very, very active in our family. She I would never claim 50-50 responsibilities. I'm not that stupid to claim 50-50 responsibilities. But and so a lot of times I will have to check in with her to see, did you one of our daughters has told her something, and she, rather than a kid tell, because she won't tell us twice, I'll have to get the information from her. And so that kind of check in, and then like, okay, so then what? And then we start talking about the impact of our child's decisions, and what's the best direction for them and that kind of thing. But kind of being on the same page, especially about the big things, I think, you can disagree about what's for dinner, but when you're on the same page all the time when it comes to the big things like your finances and your how you treat your children, how you manage your children, and like where you want to be in 5 or 10 years, it makes those little conversations a whole lot easier. And it is kind of the benefit of kind of investing in that relationship too, right?
No,
So
totally. And you need to have a common world vision. Huh? If you believe black, she cannot believe white. I mean, you have to have some sort of,
right.
equal measure of what it feels like to be in this world. We're
Hmm.
going there. And once you have the basics, it's like you say, check in,
Hmm.
enjoy spending time with them rather than not spending time with them,
Yeah.
um, and be on the same page. It's amazing how many people around us, myself included, quite often, I mean, I'm not going to lie, different pages,
Hmm.
days on end, even, different pages. But you need to kind of like regroup. You need to put that effort in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, nobody
Yeah.
else is going to do it for you.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important. So before we move on, like, are there any other kind of people that come to mind when you start thinking about like shaping you? Anyone from outside? Because you really talked about, excuse
Yeah,
me, your immediate family, and then your current family, your childhood family, and then
yeah,
current
and your
family.
nuclear family. I mean, there
Yeah,
are teachers. I mean,
yeah,
I know I'm a miss now, and probably looking at me from up above. I mean, I remember faces, and I remember people that are kind of like when you're little, and they say things to you, and you remember them. Yeah, I think we are the product of our teachers in many ways. I remember we used to live in South Africa, and there was our biology teacher, Miss Boys. One day, she took me and by the hand. She goes, "I'll come with me. I'll show you the laboratory, the biology lab." It was the first time in my life. I was like 10 years old, and she took me into the bio lab, and there were animals in formaldehyde. Those old fashioned big
yeah,
jars with the
yeah.
animals,
We had one of those too. Yeah.
and I had never seen it. Not even the movies. This was like 1989 or something or
Hmm.
some, and I was shocked. It started a love for me because eventually I did go into biology, and she was so nurturing and strict at the same time. Like this was her kingdom, and she was allowing me to go into her kingdom, and she instilled a love for me for the science of it all. And I think it was a complete turning point. For me,
Hmm.
that was just an amazing teacher, and every time, and I was so afraid of her. That's the amazing thing. I was never kind of Miss Boys. Like to this day, it was respect, and that's it. She
Hmm.
was never a friend.
Yeah.
On the other side, and because we should also say the negative things, my senior high physics professor. I wanted to be a physicist for a very long time, and he made me hate the topic. For example, he was an evil man. God rest his soul. But it happens. But he was an evil man, and
Uh huh.
the way he used physics against his classes to show them how ignorant they were, myself included, from his position of authority, made me completely go off it. So you see, those influences, they good or bad, they shape you.
Yeah.
It's how your decision making process works. So
Yeah.
yeah, but teachers are
Yeah.
very important. Very
Yeah,
important.
you can have the good with the bad, and they definitely help you make your
Well,
decisions along the
exactly,
way. And
exactly.
yeah, yeah, a
At the
bad a
same
bad
time,
teacher can really spoil a topic for you too.
and he did. He did. I mean, you might say, "Oh, why would you want to be a physicist?" That's neither here nor there. I wanted to, and he should have nurtured that at least because he knew it.
Hmm.
And then,
Yeah.
I mean, friends are also an important topic. I'm not gonna lie, I always had difficulties with friendships, connections with people. Um, I do have very strong friendships, but I also have very a lot of friendships where I need more, and I always come back to that. So they're very shaping for me in terms of how I recognize the signs in myself in kind of okay, now stop it or reach out or don't reach out or whatever. So for me, it has never been a very easy topic. So that's another discussion. But
Yeah,
when it comes to
yeah.
shaping, it has shaped me, but I'm not sure in what ways exactly.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, yeah. Friendships for me were a huge component of who I was as a young person. Like the majority of who I am is shaped through
You
my
see?
friends,
Yeah.
even more so than my family.
Hmm.
And so my friends and my friends' families actually.
Oh, there
So
you go.
very interesting like that.
Not for
But
me.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
for me.
yeah.
There you go.
Everybody's it's all different, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We all have different experiences with that, and it's important to recognize too, because um, as we got to move into like talking about institutions and programs and groups that we're part of as young people or earlier in life, you know, you can see how different men and boys or girls and women kind of engage those organizations differently, right? Some people like to jump all in. Other people like to stay on the periphery. Other people don't want anything to do with some organizations. They feel uncomfortable in big groups. But in your life, like what kinds of institutions or, well, it could even be religion, I grew up in the Catholic Church, very very Catholic every Sunday. I was altar boy and Eucharistic minister and all this kind of stuff. And we wound up going to Catholic high school. It was a big part of who I am. Um, or like, your education, or schools, or different groups you were part of, whether it's sports or otherwise. Like what kinds of groups in your life kind of help shape who you are and how you see institutions, and we can kind of come back to some of that system
Yeah.
science stuff, I think, a little bit too.
I think there's I, there's a before and after. There's two befores and afters in my life, and I think institutional wise, I will start with the later one. I mean, my time at university in the UK was a massive before and after. The person I was going into university in September 1993 uh, doesn't exist. It's simple as that. It's sort of that institution in itself took me and shaped me and hammered me and chiseled me into this wonderful man you see before you. It was first of all, it was the first time, as I said, it was the first time living alone. It was literally cleaning your little room,
Yeah.
cleaning your sink, understanding how the kitchen works, but also learning. I think as I grow up, I realize just I am a really big learner. I did well. I enjoyed it. It was fascinating for me, and building the relationships with the professors and my fellow students, and setting. I think it was the first time, even though I was 17 by that time, it was the first time I had an ecosystem, like a real non-family ecosystem. Friends coming into the room, my house, and me going to them for dinner, walking. It was on campus. It was just
Yeah.
heaven. And then walking to
Yeah.
lectures and back, and going out at night with no curfew, nothing.
Mm.
Who's gonna check? But it was a before and after, for sure. So the university and the way it was structured, that's what I'm saying. It was the institution itself. It allowed for the interactions to sort of permeate every part of your being. It wasn't just me. I think it was most students as well. But that was major. That was
Yeah,
major.
university is such an important like growing. We see in the U.S. right now, there's this big push for kids to devalue the experience of college and university, um, and it's very saddening to me because yes, there's an education to be had, right? So there's an education in terms of the books and the lessons and writing your papers and learning how to write better and think more productively and more effectively and articulate yourself better. But then there is that whole social learning, and there's a whole dynamic of growing up in this space with other people. And so, what you're explaining and describing it was very much my experience as well. Like being at school, and granted, I made plenty of mistakes. I was not mistake free at that point either, but um, as though I'm not now either. But the point is that that learning at university and having people come into the room like you're saying, kind of being together, processing. I think one of the big things for me, how did you feel about like, did you spend a lot of time talking about the experience itself as you were in it at university with your
Not
other
really.
classmates? Oh,
For me,
no?
no, not really. I
No.
think we sort of realized it in our third year. We're sort of realizing that this is heavenly and it will end.
Mm
But when you're
hmm. Mm
in
hmm.
it, like from the beginning, no, I didn't. But it was adulting 101, wasn't it? It was your first
Mm
steps into adulthood, and it felt great.
hmm.
Literally,
Yeah.
it felt great. What could go wrong? Somebody
Right?
kissed someone that you liked. Okay, you'll get over it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those big dramas, but that was it. That wasn't it. It was right there. There was those huge dramas. Did you look at her and she looked at him, and big, massive dramas
Mm
going
hmm.
out at night or going to clubs. This was. I started later as well, so I didn't go. I didn't have all that experience growing up. But like we weren't great into the club scene at 15,
Uh,
16. It wasn't really allowed. But
yeah.
once we go to university, you could like things your own way. And
Yeah.
yeah, that was the before and after. Institution wise, then uh, I didn't form. I mean, clubs and stuff. I think there are two clubs that in high school, I wasn't very sporty, unfortunately. But I was part of the drama club, which was an amazing outlet. I know it's kind of that's what people say, a lot of energy, but it really helped me visualize the world in a very specific way.
Mm
And
hmm.
we did really arty stuff like Pirandello and Italians, and we did some great plays, but it was mostly the interaction and kind of like showing off what you can do. I didn't have many opportunities to do that in high school. So for me, that was important, but nowhere near. I wouldn't call that an institution even. I wouldn't. It has to be university. It has to be.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
religion for sure.
Uh huh. Uh huh. And so like, when were there any? So I'm curious, like, because one of the things that I kind of motivated me for this to pull this podcast together is to kind of also highlight, like, what are these? The university is a great example of growing in a space with other people and experiencing these things, and kind of seeing that transformation in your life. Were there any, like, how do you find yourself in what we call like third spaces? Are you familiar with this notion of third spaces? Like, so sometimes now, um, it was booked by a gentleman named Robert Putnam, and it's called Bowling Alone. And he had done this work in Italy, and he had been researching, civic engagement in Italy. And he was seeing that in communities in Italy that had higher levels of civic engagement. They also had more like bocce clubs, and they had more like community engagement activities, like around other things, whether they were like I can't exactly articulate what the clubs were doing, but maybe they were women and it was around sewing, or maybe it was around hiking, or maybe it was around um, some other activity where kind of an affinity group of sorts would exist. And, part of his logic was that when you have these kind of spaces where people can coalesce and be together, even if they're on two different sides of the political spectrum, they say, oh, well, Giannis is a nice guy. Even though I disagree with him politically, he's a nice guy. So it's okay that we disagree on this. We can still be friends, right? We can still be, you know, participate in this activity together and have a beer together or what have you. Um, Whereas today, once you're identified as having this belief or that belief about politics or pronouns or something like this, people are very quick to kind of disengage, right? And so, what those third spaces provide is they provide that kind of opportunity to see one another as you really are, and not necessarily not seeing people as their vote, more so seeing them as a person. And so, I'm curious, were there any opportunities? It could even be a work opportunity where you've kind of engaged people and had like an experience of kind of working through problems when you didn't think you would be able to get through that issue or work through an issue, a topic, and kind of develop some learning along the way that kind of either helped build a better outcome, whether the output or outcome related to that project, or um, kind of built something within you in terms of your experiences that you could then bring forward in your life.
Well, from university onwards, I mean, university really exposes you to different kinds of people, and I started hanging out with groups which I never thought I would hang out with, and ethnicities and uh, people that you wouldn't necessarily hang out with. As you say, being based on their beliefs, you sort of tend to look across from that, and even from a professional life, from that time onwards, I was always finding myself in multicultural groups. So I don't know if there was any judgment we passed at any point or relating to their beliefs, but at the end of the day, you sort of tend to cluster together to bring solutions for whatever it is that you're doing. I think for me, I carry that within me anyway. Our family was an immigrant family for many generations back. My all my ancestors were Greeks from Egypt, so a lot of that back and forth is inbuilt in our in our relationship with foreigners and different beliefs in that, and how we mesh with them. So I'm not sure if that qualifies as a third space, but usually our home was a third space, or our society, our little group was a third space, and
Uh-huh.
we tended to, like, my family was a Christian family, and same with other white Christian families in Egypt in the 1900s, in the 1850s. It was a burgeoning community, so I generationally I carry this, so I have a great openness to differences. I do draw lines, but generally I will almost always give you the benefit of the doubt if we can work together to find something.
Yeah.
I do have lines. We'll not discuss them right now. There's no point. They
Sure.
they are there.
Sure.
They are there. But then
Hmm.
again, what you're describing is, I mean, the loss of those communities, the loss of that camaraderie within societies is what brought on civil wars in most parts of Europe in
Yeah.
the 20th century. So it's a very obvious symptom of
Hmm.
social breakdown, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and that's when he took the theories from this Robert Putnam, was a professor at Harvard, and when he took the theories back to the U.S. and he started to examine communities, he used the analogy of, or the example of, um, bowling leagues. So
Well,
he was saying, like, the bowling leagues, that there used to be 20 bowling leagues, now there's like one bowling league. And so the number of people who were kind of taking the time to be in community in that space has gone down. We're seeing there are some initiatives in the United States right now. One of them is called Weave, like as you weave a basket. And that group is actually doing some really cool work around funding, giving like really small little grants, a few $1,000s or maybe even a few $100s to get people off the ground to start third spaces. Even doing things like, um, neighborhood dinners. Like, hey, here's $500. You distribute it around your group of people, and they'll come together. You'll identify people who are interested to come for dinner and share the opportunity to host, and just to put people in the same room, sharing a meal together and having a conversation about life. Or I don't think there's an agenda or any kind of like written script to this, but kind of developing those. And I mean, you must see some of this in your work too. Like, you know, were you significantly impacted by remote work, or do you continue to be significantly impacted by remote work and working?
I refuse to partake in it. I was never a great fan. I find such value in the interaction. It still baffles me how people opt out, and how people
Hmm.
have significant fights with their land managers, considering the topic of where they're going to work from.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
office is the office, and it has a value which outlives the outcome of your work. It is a mental process, it is a social process, and kind of eliminating that for the glory of being in your boxer shorts all day, frankly, I find it disturbing. Yes, we've
Uh-huh.
all done it. It was wonderful, and now it's over.
Yeah. 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 It's I'll be quite honest, I work mostly in this exact spot you see me in right now. But
How?
and
How?
I don't enjoy it. And mostly it's because my commute to Baltimore is so long. So for me to get to Baltimore, it's over an hour and a half and
Oh, okay.
each way. And so it's one of those things where I will go out to Baltimore a few days a month, but most of my time is here in Arlington, Virginia. So and we're not ready to move yet. Our kids are a little bit still in school and stuff. So once maybe there'll be a move at some point in the next few years. But
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Whatever
But it is.
works.
I would remember even like going in after the pandemic had settled down a bit. We had an office here in Washington D.C., very close to my home, and I would go in and I would think there'd be a handful of people. We were going to sit and meet together, and I'd get to the office and everybody was on Zoom, and I was like, yeah, this isn't. I didn't ride my bike in here today for
That
this.
defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
It
Yeah. It
defeats the
was nice to
purpose.
ride my bike, but I could have just rode my bike and gone right back to my basement and taken a shower or whatever too.
And
So,
that's, I mean, in a sense, it has internationalized teams, fine, and it has broken down boundaries,
yes.
fine. But there's a big but, and I
Yeah.
think the price that our generation and just a little younger paid, I think, is becoming obvious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big shift. And how do you get people in the same room and how do you, especially even like, talking about like negotiating and things like that. And how do you get people to kind of work together more effectively? I think
and
it's
especially
even,
when they don't want it. I mean, literally, the resistance is right there. It's not even because the opportunity is back. I mean, you can do it, but people don't want it. You have
hmm.
chunks of people that literally are really, really adamant against coming back full time.
Yeah. Yeah. There are many. All right. So kind of like the last question I have for you is kind of again getting at, how do you experience the outside world,
Yes.
right? So, your connection or disconnection with the natural world. Some people it's maybe gardening, having a few plants in the house, getting to the park. But I'm curious, like for me, it's always been a very regenerative activity. Spending time outside is greatly important to me. And it can even be city streets, riding my bike through the city streets of DC, or it could be, going for a hike out into the woods nearby my house or even much further away. But I'm curious, in your, how do you use the outside space and how does it play a role in your life? And like, how do you experience it?
It's I was thinking about this, and it really is massive and has progressed into this massive thing over the last few years, especially. I am, among other things, in terms of physical fitness, I am a great walker. So I will easily do miles and miles and miles of
Mm,
walking through different terrains. I will put my shoes on. I will walk downtown. I will walk into a forest. I will just walk and vanish for like 2 hours, 3 hours.
hmm.
It will be done.
Hmm.
If I don't have time, it will be an hour in the morning, then an hour in the evening, then I'll go to the gym. I go to an open air gym. I actually changed my subscription. So I
No
actually now
kidding.
go to an open air gym so I can see the sun. And a lot of it has to do with how I clear my mind when I'm outside. There's no digital disturbance apart from the odd podcast now and then,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
always. But it's the only time when literally there will not be a screen chasing me. I would not advise walking and checking your phone. So that
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that much makes sense. But for me, it's really just feeling the earth beneath my feet and kind of like getting those steps in and feeling the cold. I mean, I used to do it at like 5:30 a.m., 6
Yeah.
a.m. I used to go out, and now that the summer is coming, the sun is up early, and I'll be out before the kids go to school. Fine,
Hmm.
and then I'll come
Hmm.
get them, and then we're off. But it's a safety valve.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really is. It lets the steam out like almost nothing else. It's a physical check. It's a mental check. Now there's a special time. I mean, I live in Athens. From May onwards, we have the sea. So
Yeah.
there's nothing. I mean, it really is medicine. And once you hit the waves from May onwards, all the way to September, it really does something to you.
Hmm.
Um,
Do you get to spend time on the beach
oh
often,
yes,
or is it, yeah, the
oh
weekends
yes.
and things?
No,
Yeah.
very quite often. It
Nice.
could be even on a weekday. You could venture out. It's 30 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
30 minutes is doable. I
Yeah.
don't go every day, but there will not be a week that goes by that you don't go to the beach.
Nice. Nice.
But it's
Nice.
a special kind of medicine. Huh? It's not like swimming or anything. It's that outside connecting, and I think it's the air, water, and sand, converging into one space, and there you are to witness that. I think
Yeah.
it plays a magical thing in your mind, in your head.
It does. And I bring this question up a lot because, I ask this question to people all the time in on personal settings or at a party or something. Like I don't want to ask about their jobs. I don't want to ask about the stupid stuff. I want to, so, you know, I'll ask what they read now and again, but then I'll also ask, hey, when was the last time you were outside and what'd you do? And I'll hear something, they'll tell me something. And that'll inevitably get into a really common ground kind of dynamic, right? Um, but when I had first moved to North Carolina from long ago, I was running a lot. I had been living in Ethiopia. I'd come back and I came back to the US and I was in pretty good shape. I was running quite a bit. And I wanted to continue that. And so I'd like to run the trails and things like this around Durham, North Carolina. And I used to go to this one park called Umstead Park right near the airport in Raleigh. And I'd run the trail, the same trail. I wasn't like adventurous. It was like a 5 mile run, but it wasn't like I wasn't doing this different route every day. But I'd go past these trees. I'd go past the same trees that were really close to the trail. And some of them were big and bigger, they kind of stood out from the others. And I named them. And I started to name them of my aunts and uncles. Oh, this is Uncle Larry. This is my cousin. This is my cousin Todd. This is my grandmother. This is my mom. And I would go by and I would like high five them when I would run by, just as a way to kind of like connect and use the outside space as a way to connect with other people and to kind of like keep them in my mind as I was kind of going through this very alone experience. Because when I moved to North Carolina, I did have a good couple of friends in the area, but I was also very alone. And I had been alone for several years, and I kind of missed. I get homesick even now. I get homesick a little bit of Massachusetts. Not that homesick that I'm going to move there, but like enough that enough that I miss the people very much. Yeah. So it was always a good way to kind of like remind myself that yeah, they're still there. Make the phone call, check in, check in on these people.
And I
So.
think what you're saying, the solitude plays a special role.
Mhm.
I'm never a great friendship hiker. I would never go on groups to go walk unless, I mean, it really it sort of stresses me out to follow somebody else's pace. Maybe that's just something about me. I need to set it, and I need to be responsible for myself. I don't even go with my family. I don't even.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
me. I need to, and I think you can only do that outside. It's not even a treadmill, which I find
Yeah,
horrible anyway.
yeah,
But yeah, it's the solitude plays a big part.
yeah. Well, cool. So one of the ways in which we connected was through like the work around men and men's health and the conversation that's kind of been evolving over the last couple of years. I know you've started a new organization, Humale, and have kind of building out this topic and how it relates to the workspaces and things like this. Why don't you share a little bit about this, the motivation for it, about Humale and the motivation for the organization, and kind of where you hope to be with it in the next few months or 6 months?
Well, yeah, Humale really. it's fairly new. It literally is less than 2 months old, but it's an idea that's been sort of running circuits in my head for about a year and a half now. Uh, it sort of signals my own path through psychotherapy, but also kind of uh, touches upon ideas that I've been thinking about and I could not get answers about uh, from anywhere, really. And as you say, it's a space that has now received some attention. So, what I was always noticing was that if you're talking, let's say I have friends who work in the media and they were saying, oh, we have websites on women's topics and women's health, and we also have really good portals for men's issues. We're like, oh, excellent. What is it? Well, we have a car portal and we have a portal about basketball. I'm like, these are sports and it's a
Yeah.
car portal. Yeah, but these are for men. I'm like, what about the men topics? What do you mean? I'm like, yeah, we don't have that. But not only that, nobody had that. So I'm trying, what Human is trying to do, to put it in a nutshell, is trying to put words into the changes surrounding midlife in men,
Hmm.
both physical changes, which are massive and no one talks about, or at best they will advise you go to the gym, and mental health changes and challenges, relationship challenges, uh, what changes in your areas of responsibility, what things become burdensome, how things impact the way you think about the world. So for me, when I started putting this all together, one day last summer, I woke up and this name came into the humane.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll call
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
humane. And for me, I'm quite visual. So once an idea takes shape in the terms of a name and then a logo, it's just you roll with it.
Yeah.
Once it became human in my head, it wasn't long before I started writing more, I started researching more, creating some partnerships. I mean, this will be launched, the website will be launched in June.
Hmm.
And I'll spend the summer with some partners to fine tune and kind of give it, some wings. But essentially, first of all, it's a space for men to find information, to talk
Hmm.
about what's troubling them. There will be some interaction, but also articulate. I think that's very important.
Hmm.
There's very very few examples for third spaces, even
Yeah.
for men to articulate their experience in midlife.
Yeah. Yeah.
What happens after 50? What happens? Where are we going? Because we're still here, so I don't
Yeah.
know who talks about it.
Yeah. It's a really good point too, because a lot of the programming and activities are centered on younger men,
Yeah,
right?
which
So
is fine,
this,
of course, very
yeah,
much needed. But don't
yeah,
forget, and I keep coming back to this, the men who shape young men, their fathers, are in their 50s. So it's a circle. It's always a circle. So when a boy is 14, 15, chances are his father will be 45, 47, and that's exactly when those challenges are challenging him.
yeah.
So he will be less of a father to that boy. And that's when the challenges begin.
Hmm.
And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but the challenges will be, he'll be facing those issues that if we don't address them, then that circle, that vicious circle, goes on and on and on and on. I mean, one of the articles, the main article that I published, is that things your father never told you. And that's essentially the essence, because we don't get much education, even from our fathers, uh, about what happens uh,
Hmm.
on many, many levels.
You wrote about that. So one of the posts you put on LinkedIn was around it. There were a couple of lines in there, and it's like one of the sentences is like your knees, and it was all you put. Like you were kind of talking about different challenges that you've had as you've aged, and your body has changed so much. And then at one point you said like, uh, and your knees, and I was like, oh yeah, and my knees start to feel it a lot more as I
Actually,
as
it's
I get
it's a
older.
matter. Most men, kind of, we tend to laugh it off, and that's part of our strength. That's part of our
Hmm.
strength because it makes you resilient in a way. But
Hmm.
when it accumulates, at some point, you're no longer laughing, and the immediate switch goes to silence. That's the problem. Once
Yeah.
you have the resilience to laugh it off, oh, I got up to the bathroom at night. Haha. And that's funny. When you stop talking about it and that resilience turns into silence,
Hmm.
that's when it starts becoming more and more troublesome.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
human is trying to at least open up that conversation.
Yeah. And I think it's a really great point to make too, is that, it is a conversation, and it's a conversation that gets lost, right? So we're not kind of we're not primed in a way, for lack of a better word. We're not trained or kind of encouraged culturally in around the world. It's
Exactly.
not just it's not just the US, it's not just Greece,
No,
it's not
no,
just,
no, no. It's
you know,
everywhere.
it's everywhere. We're not really primed to talk about like those vulnerabilities, right? So those vulnerabilities we kind of like keep to ourselves until it becomes too late, until
Yeah,
it becomes a situation where,
yeah,
and I do feel like there is a lot to be said for finding ways to kind of bring those conversations into common discourse with men. Many men are struggling with these things, and they don't really need to struggle. There are solutions, and not every solution is for every guy, right? So some guys are going to be like, okay, therapy is the way I want to go. Other guys will wait until the last minute to go to therapy, or they'll wait, even physical therapy, right? They'll wait too
yeah,
long before
exactly.
they get into physical therapy. Or my biggest hang up is the dentist. I hate the dentist. And I know right now I'm having a situation where I have to get into the dentist in the
Go,
next couple of weeks. And yeah, I
go.
gotta go. I
It's
just
not
have
gonna
to
get
go.
better. Go.
Yeah, yeah. So it's those things, and having the conversation around that and what it means,
I
and what
mean,
it
one of the
means when you get
topics, I
older
think,
too.
humale, and I will wrap up with that.
Yeah.
We touched upon the issue of functional isolation in men.
Mm,
For me, it was an eye opener when I was reading it because I found parts of myself in that, and how we tend, like women are excellent at holding on to relationships, female relationships, into midlife. And as men tend to lose them past adolescence. So we're great in sports teams and clans and kind of those groups, maximum mid 20s. And then they tend to get lost somewhere along the
yeah.
way. And you see married men hanging out with the husbands of their wives' friends. It's an amazing pattern, and you see
Yeah.
it. It's
Yeah.
literally you isolate. By the time you hit 50, 55, you find men with no friends.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating to me because it happens so often. And it was the right question is, if you're a man and you wake up at 2 a.m. afraid for something, who do you call? Which male friend do you call who
Right.
has context of your life? And I will just leave that with that question because it's scary how many men will answer no one.
Yeah. It is. It's very scary. Yeah.
So
And
that's
I
what we're
do.
trying to do.
I think that's a great place to kind of wrap it up. I think this was a great conversation and a way to, understand just relational dynamics as it comes to parents and relationships with your wife and your partners, your children. How this, I love the way you described, as you have those three children of sorts, right? Your two actual children and plus your relationship, and how you all have to work together. You and your wife have to work together to, manage the things coming from outside into your relationship, as well as kind of taking care of your children at the same time. Um, and the impact of universities and the outdoor space, and playing a key role in your life. I honestly, Janos, I appreciate you being the guinea pig on this first
It was my
podcast.
pleasure.
It was my pleasure too. I really enjoyed it, and I really hope that we keep the communication open between us. And I'm certain we will. We're connected in a few ways now, so I really
Excellent.
appreciate you. Thank you.
Lovely talking to you. Good luck with everything, and looking forward to the final result.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.